Hi. I'm not doing this just because I have a shirt. I'm doing this because The Sandlot was a childhood movie of mine that no one talks about, and I'd love to talk about it. And also because I have the shirt. In real life, I am in fact a real person. I'm not just a 2D avatar. I move. See, look my fingers. I am also a woman. I know it's scary. I know it's scary and it's frightening to see a real life actual woman, but this channel is a safe space. It's okay to be scared. It's okay. I believe in you guys. And this is in fact where I spend most of my day. And hopefully you'll be seeing more of it because I hate editing my 2D avatar, so I'm gonna try to navigate to this. So why am I doing this? I don't like to have to edit my VTuber avatar, and I'm never pleased with the art I've done for it before, and constantly trying to redraw stills would be a nightmare. So I'd rather just have my real life hands just moving and explaining everything. And so you guys can have the fun of seeing my desk and realizing I still am a person. But mainly because I don't want to do the art, and mainly because, like, I have a shirt. I want to use it. So I will use my body language to avoid copyright issues with movies as well. I can just edit whatever I want over my face, so whatever I put on over here is whatever future Bubbly wants. And also, I have to point out, like I said before, I have this shirt. I kind of really want to do a video about the Sandlot with a Sandlot shirt, and I can't do that with a VTuber. The Sandlot came out in 1993, featuring a group of boys centered around baseball, friendship, and dogs. It's one of those classic films you watch for the old 1990s vibe. Not myself, I watched it more because I was young and it was a funny movie. My parents adored it, and to this day, "You're Killing Me, Smalls" is still an inside joke that we have. Not only was it a funny, lighthearted, entertaining movie, I always did have a connection to it. Contrary to popular belief, I was actually in softball all throughout middle school and switched over to cross country in high school, and I have the trophy to prove it. Since no one ever believes that VTubers actually play, here's my proof. I cover the label so you can't say my legal last name, but it says softball. I have played softball before. I have been in a sport. I am not like other girls. Yes, I think I'm qualified enough to cover this movie. Frankly, anyone is qualified to cover anything on YouTube if they have a decent enough microphone, and this one looks kind of expensive, so I think I'm qualified in that regards as well. The Sandlot features a group of boys out in a sandlot just down by their house, the same kind of area every country town has. If you grew up in a small town where the sun was always a little bit too warm in the summer and you needed a break away from your parents, your town had one. Mine culminated in this beat-down park that was just a walk away from home, where there was this big slide and a merry-go-round we rode until we always threw up. This whole movie has that nostalgic charm to it, especially when the first few notes in the opening music hit, and by God, did I go wild. We first start off the movie with an older man walking into the announcer's booth of a massive baseball stadium. And then we get a voiceover with a flashback combination, a classic cliche of these types of movies. Sure enough, we get to see the main character moving into a town right before summer break hits. For simplicity's sake, I will be calling the main character Smalls. Because the shirt. Smalls is a typical nerdy kid with button-up shirts and gadgets he likes to mess around with within his room, without any nearby friends to speak of. The narrator is clear to point out that he did have friends when he moved, but that he moved so far away that meeting them just wasn't an option anymore. Smalls does have a stepfather, some businessman who likes baseball and has a ball signed by the legendary Babe Ruth himself. And contrary to old-time step-family stories, the dad is actually quite nice. He does care for his kid, and Smalls is willing to call him dad. They're awkward around one another in a way a newly adopted dog is around the home puppy. Neither of them have quite figured out each other yet, but they're getting there. And another cliche this film tramples on is that the nerdy kid who doesn't like sports at all. Smalls is into baseball right off the bat. There's no wasted time trying to teach this kid the art of enjoying physical activity. He wants to learn how to play. It's just a difference of wanting to play and actually being able to play. Smalls also does make an effort to participate as well. He doesn't sit around on his hands and hope for something to happen. He grabs a plastic baseball mitt his grandma gave him and goes out to the sandlot to play and make some friends. So here's a small tidbit of knowledge. Be warned, it has been a while since I've played softball. I haven't played since the beginning of high school, and I've already gone through and graduated college. I'm not an expert, and I don't play professionally. But let me tell you how much plastic mitts suck. They do. It's like wearing a plastic container. I used one briefly during my time back in the day, and it felt like I was being stabbed with plastic every single time I caught a softball. The real gloves that are more leather instead of plastic are the better ones. And at least in my experience. I don't know. From what little research I did do about this, most American-made baseball gloves are pretty garbage compared to what they were back in the day, even though a majority of them are now only leather. If anyone knows any better, feel free to comment it down below, as much as I enjoyed softball back in the day. There's a reason I stopped with only a participation trophy. Regardless, the fact that this kid was going out in a terrible plastic mitt without any baseball experience shows a lot about him. He's not doing this just to make friends, he's doing it because he legitimately loves baseball. A lot of people with a lot more resources nowadays aren't willing to throw themselves into a hobby they're interested in, even though they would have an arguably better time being introduced to it. I just like the idea of how willing Smalls is to put in any effort to try to join them originally. It's such a small detail, but it shows a lot about his character. Or I'm just reading too much into it, and it was meant to be played off as a little joke. Sadly, his willingness to play the game doesn't translate to his ability to do so, because once Smalls actually got the chance to participate, he couldn't. Poor boy couldn't catch or throw a ball for the life of him, to the point where he had to run up to the pitcher and drop off a ball, which was a humiliating thing to do, to the point where every single kid, minus one, laughed at him. This is where Benny's character really shines, of being that nice, kind kid that is actually inclusive to everyone. Not only was he the only one that went out of his way to invite Smalls, Benny goes up to him and teaches him how to actually throw and catch a ball. It'd be awkward and rushed, sure, but he does put forth the effort. It really is a sweet friendship these two develop, and I like the way the movie portrays it. Once Smalls officially joined the local cult of baseball, the kid officially garnered some friends. They played baseball every day, with the lingering hint of something big and scary on the other side of the back fence. All the while, the voiceover consistently hints to some big pickle that's going to happen in the future. I feel like they linger on the pickle a little bit too long in all of the voiceovers. It's grating to hear the man remind us constantly that one day the plot is going to happen. Like, yeah, I get it. I'm watching the movie. Also, I need to point out how hilarious the kids are for all of these roles. Their acting is genuinely hilarious.
Yeah, okay. Yes, let's see it. Yes. Give him a hot Whoa! You call that pitching? This is baseball, not tennis. Give me the tennis racket. Give me something to hit. All right, Em. This is my heater. I dare you to hit it. You'll be sorry. You want the heater? I'll give it to you.
I haven't had anything yet, so how can I have some more of nothing?
Shut up!
You're killing me, Smalls.
It's gonna be a short game, and I gotta get home for lunch.
That's one. You know, if my dog was as ugly as you, I'd shave his butt and tell him to walk backwards.
The heater. Here it comes. I tell you. Strike three, you're up.
Hey, is that your sister out there in left field, naked? She's naked.
Shut up, Porter!
Hey, I'm just trying to have a little friendly conversation. Come on. Think she'd go out with me?
While some of the kid actors feel more like actors, these people feel like kids that were shoved together in front of a camera. This all feels so organic for the time period. The way that they act in certain scenes, fumbling about like aloof kids who barely even know what taxes are, is just absolutely hilarious. The kids eventually have a sleepover in a treehouse next to the fence that blocks out the creature we consistently hear, and the movie finally reveals what is behind the fence. The Beast, a term coined by the boys, is a massive guard dog that eats anyone within radius. The kids all warn Smalls about it, and how that yard is its territory. The moment any ball crosses that border, it is no longer their ball. The kids also teach Smalls about the wonders of s'mores. The scene was one of my favorites as a kid, and despite the fact that I have not watched this film in over 15 years, I nearly could recall it line by line. Which is why I did this. Excuse me for a second. I made s'mores. This was already a mistake. But dude, oh my god, they hit so good. S'mores are amazing. Why don't I eat s'mores every single day? I mean, it is the season, but damn. Following this scene, the classic cliche of a heat wave hits, and all the boys abandon their posts in favor of going down to the town pool and taking a dip to offset the heat. While there is, conveniently, a hot lifeguard a little bit older than them that they all swoon over. And I have to ask, does this actually ever happen to anyone? I have never been to a pool where there was a young lifeguard. I've only ever seen older lifeguards with more rigid training under their belt. Where are you guys getting these people from? In typical prepubescent boy fashion, all of the boys want a chance with her. They say some things that are likely just regurgitated statements from adults around them. It just gave off those vibes. And that is when one of the boys, the one that they called Squints, decided to make a bold move and trick the lifeguard into kissing him by pretending to drown. Thankfully, the narrator did point out that Squints was really lucky to get away with it as much as he did. And he really was lucky considering that the girl only kicked him out instead of kicking his ass. Now, this is where I need to pull back and address the elephant in the room and how old this movie is. This was made, like I said earlier, in 1993, and it shows. While this movie is classic and is very nostalgic, it definitely butts heads with today's current media. This stunt Squints pulled is one of the examples this movie had for its time period. The other main example I can remember is when they challenge a team later in the film, and the main insult that drives the conflict is comparing the other team to playing like girls. So, hi, I'm a girl, if you haven't noticed, and I'm a girl that played softball, and so, I played, oh my god, it's, not a big deal. So, this movie definitely objectifies girls in ways that were common for the time period, but are still heavily uncomfortable to watch. I remember not liking the pool scene back when I was younger, and rewatching it nowadays is also quite unpleasant. Just overall, that girl was definitely traumatized from that incident. I mean, think about it. This girl just had an adrenaline rush of thinking this poor kid was going to die if she didn't immediately save him. She legitimately thought Squints was going to die on her watch if she didn't do something. That is a terrifying moment that I have personally lived. That kind of moment when you're in charge of a group of children because of a part-time job you took up, and suddenly one of them might actually die because they were acting stupid. I cannot explain how unfathomably terrifying it is to have to jump in yourself and save them at a moment's notice when you are a teenager. Not only was this girl running on a rush of anxiety and terror, she was doing so with everyone watching her, only to find out that this brat had pulled a stunt just to try to trick a kiss out of her. Seriously, if I were the lifeguard, I would have kicked his ass. And he did absolutely deserve it. I get that boys can be stupid, but I think this level of stupidity for a non-consensual kiss should have gotten punished more. The narrator talks about the kiss as if it was the coolest thing that had ever happened to him, not like an adult desperately embarrassed by an old friend when he was younger. This is an adult version of Smalls looking back at this memory and narrating, yeah, that's neat. Should the movie have focused on her the way that it did, had him force a kiss onto her, and should the narrator have spoken about the non-consensual kiss this way? No. But was that the common expectation for movies back then? Yes. I'm not using this to excuse the movie, and nor should you. I just wanted to pull everyone aside and cover that these issues did occur in the movie, and that we do have to acknowledge them and learn to not repeat them in the future. I actually found a great quote from Reddit regarding this, on a post regarding the sexism of the Sandlot scene in particular. The Redditor, a now deleted account, said this: "All because something is a classic doesn't mean it can't be flawed or sexist. Part of liking something and appreciating it is also being able to realize its shortcomings and how it could be even better." I think this film has definitely aged bad in some regards, in that specific scenes, even for the time period, went poorly. He really shouldn't have ended up with the girl at the end, as if he was being rewarded for it. And this scene is just grosser when you realize that the girl playing the lifeguard was a legal adult, and the boy playing Squints was 12 years old. No movie should depict someone that young forcing a kiss onto a legal adult and being considered lucky, and ending up with her. Much less in the way that he tricked her, which can be traumatizing to some people. Have you ever been watching a kid and suddenly they're inches away from extreme fatal harm? It's not fun. Though it doesn't matter under what context a kiss is forced onto someone, forced is still forced, no matter the context. It literally takes 2 seconds to ask someone for a smooch. So yeah, I just wanted to pull you all aside and cover this real quick. It's weird and uncomfortable, and I didn't feel confident making this video and not talking about it. So, sorry it became real awkward for a second there. More days pass with the boys. They play on the 4th of July at night. They have a rival team they play against and beat. The cliche of mean girls expecting to have blonde hair and pink outfits that they only wear on Wednesdays, and instead of that, it's a group of boys that sort of exist. I don't know, I'll be so real, I started to zone out around that point. My cat walked into the room, and I was thoroughly intrigued. The way the boys beat them is so funny to me, because the man of the hour, the one on my shirt, just constantly gets into their head to fuck with their batting, which does work, mind you. Someone on my team did that during my softball years, and it is extremely distracting when the catcher is mouthing off to you. That boy single-handedly carried their team. And when the boys inevitably won, they figured no place was better to celebrate than an amusement park. And with chewing tobacco, as one of the kids managed to get his greedy hands onto some, and he handed it out for the rest of them. I think the film handles this portrayal of wrong much more, as the boys suffer way more than any of their other stunts. They take substances that they don't know how to use and are too young for, and immediately pay by getting incredibly sick on the rides and throwing up on everyone. This scene is pretty gross, and I had been eating dinner when I watched it. Frankly, not the best plan I've ever had about making a video. And finally, we get to the actual pickle Smalls has been calling up this entire time. Benny, the local legend of baseball, one day hits a baseball so hard the covering over it split entirely, which is pretty impressive, but unfortunately left the boys without any ball, until Smalls remembered that his dad had a baseball, one in his office that's just signed by some random guy named Babe Ruth. No biggie. So Smalls decides to go on down to his house and snatch up the ball to play with. Easy peasy. Until, of course, he hits a home run and it goes over the fence. Right where the beast is. Only then does he reveal that the ball was signed by some guy named Babe Ruth, and everyone proceeded to freak out. Which, yeah, fair. You see, this is why you don't pretend to know things that you don't. You accidentally hit a priceless signed baseball into the lair of a human-eating dog. It's kinda your fault. I also like how the boys got his back after Smalls realizes what he had done. They full-on took off all their hats to fan him, and all immediately decided to help him get it back. No hesitation. He's one of them, and they're going to help him as one of them. Instantly, the boys set off to try to get the ball, but every attempt gets thwarted. A rake? Gone. A bucket? Obliterated. This dog quite literally tears through metal like butter, and every single lane the boys stick over the wall is lost. They insist on not knocking on the neighbor's door since they don't trust him, and instead stick to trying to trespass into his backyard multiple times in favor of getting the ball back. And each time they get closer to it, the dog destroys it more and more. The treehouse is lost to an explosion of built-up dust from a vacuum, and honestly, this scene was pretty funny to watch. It gets to the point where even an in-person rescue attempt by the most enlightened member of the group doesn't get them anywhere. But fret not, as Babe Ruth himself appeared to Benny in a dream to encourage him to get the ball back. Everyone give it up for Babe Ruth, haunting people's dreams to save their baseballs. What a hero. And so, with the ghostly encouragement of Babe Ruth, Benny fully jumps the fence to get the ball. No gadgets or schemes, just Benny himself against the beast. And sure enough, when Benny comes face to face with it, it's just a dog. A dog that just sees the ball and gets excited, and begun to chase Benny once the wall between his territory and the Sandlot went down. And there was this whole chase sequence with the movie that was honestly so fucking boring to watch, since he just runs around town and loops back to the Sandlot. Through shenanigans, the wall ends up falling onto the dog and pinning him against the ground, whimpering and scared. Thankfully, the kids in the movie aren't heartless and actually help the dog back up. Thank God. I couldn't. If the dog died, I couldn't. And this is where we finally get to meet the dog owner. An old blind man who was a bit snippy with the kids, but is overall harmless and means well. All of this work, all of this paranoia amounted to nothing but fear-mongering that the kids had done to themselves. Not only was this man kind enough to let them go back there any time to get their balls, it also turns out that this man was a massive baseball fan, and that he played with Babe Ruth and would have likely surpassed him if he hadn't gone blind. With a promise to meet the lonely man once a week to talk about baseball, they get a replacement ball to give back to Small's dad, a baseball signed by every single member on Babe Ruth's team that year. And with that, the movie comes to a close. The kids all end up moving out of town eventually, and each having a short snippet story as to where they turned out. with one of the kids, the one that had the chewing tobacco, being implied that he got lost in drugs and was never seen again. The film closes with a reveal that the main character, Smalls, is still in contact and involved with Benny. They seem to have stayed close friends all these years, with Smalls working on Benny's games. And when Benny won his team a game, one of the first people he looked to was Smalls himself. Which is nice to know that they developed an incredibly close bond, which was honestly really sweet. And thus, The Sandlot ended. I need to hear about a second film, but I've never actually watched it. If this video does well, I may watch it for a follow-up, but ultimately depends on if this pops off or not. I think overall, this film is a nostalgic watch that both thoroughly creeped me out, but also tugged at my heartstrings all at once. And even if you didn't grow up with the film, there's definitely something there for any kid who grew up in a more country-centered neighborhood. And be warned, the next part is completely cringe and out of nowhere. But I'd be lying to say that I'm not curious, and I do have to share my findings with you all. So if you want to skip the next part, you absolutely can, but if you just want to hear my short thoughts about the fanfic culture of The Sandlot, feel free to stay. It'll be quick and I won't go into any specific fanfics, I promise. Now, this is where my personal expertise comes in. I just like to look at fan perception of a film to see what exactly people want to see more of. I mean, I have a lot of history with fanfiction. I have about 100 fanfics on AO3 right now, and I've been writing fanfiction since middle school. If you look around, I use fanfics to gauge the audience perception of a media because it's the audience that is most dedicated to media that is often writing about it, because fanfiction does take a lot of effort. And if they're dedicated enough to write more about it, I like to see what they would write more about. Archive of Our Own is considered one of the main fanfiction hubs online in general, and so I like to check on there, especially since it's been around since like 2010. And the main ship on AO3 is Benny x Smalls, which isn't surprising at all. They do have a really close friendship, and they were honestly just really sweet to watch. There are more fanfics than I thought there would be. There's 4 pages on AO3, and usually past 1 page means that there's enough of a fandom to write stuff. I was not expecting there to be 4 pages. I will be so real, I thought there was just going to be like 4 fanfics, not 4 pages of fanfic. I also did find a crossover fanfic between Star Wars and The Sandlot, which is astounding to me, but I'm also not surprised. Overall, the main focus of the fanfics either seems to be Benny x Smalls fluffy media, Benny x original characters, often original female characters, or about the pool scene. The pool scene is usually about either different characters or Squints trying to make it up to Wendy, though there wasn't a lot of them to begin with. Most pieces seem to be more fluffy in nature, so overall the fandom seems to prioritize Smalls and Benny with cute moments or as platonic best friends, which I get a lot considering how supportive they are of each other and overall just had a good friendship. Overall, the fandom itself seemed to latch onto Smalls x Benny or Benny himself as a romantic interest, which I would get if I was 12. I'm very clearly not 12 anymore, and I can't recall ever having a crush on him either. He would be a good crush for a kid to have, though. He's extremely polite, inclusive, a good leader with strong convictions towards his craft, and is overall a good role model for kids to have. It would make sense that few kids would latch on to him. So yeah, I just wanted to share what I found real quick. I've never read any of the fanfics, but I do like to do a quick sweep of AO3 to see what dedicated fans say. It's just fun to stop by and see what others have worked hard on. And this isn't meant to make fun of their fanfiction either. I write a lot of fanfiction. I'm very open about that. It's really linked in like all my videos. I'm very upfront about what I do in my free time. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I had to cover The Sandlot because there just isn't much content about it on YouTube other than re-uploaded clips in a few compilations. I hope anyone who used to watch it got a wave of nostalgia, and anyone who hasn't learned something new today. You all have a fantastic day, and consider subscribing and check out my other content. And if this video does do well, I will make a video about The Sandlot too. Fingers crossed. Come on, guys. Anyway. What are you still doing here?